Oh, shalom everybody from Israel. Yeah, it's been a long night. It's been a hard day's night. We have some exciting news for all of you, and it's important to get together with me and the news on VFI News because Hamas is building a second front in southern Lebanon to, in the future, shoot more rockets against Israel. Hezbollah is not enough, so they're adding Hamas to the mix, the blender. And you know what comes out in the blender? Not so good in this case. Well, anyways, also Defense Minister Benny Gantz, our Defense Minister of Israel, is warning the world to stand up and unite against Iran's drive for nuclear weapons. The IAF, the Israeli Air Force, is training for an eventual attack against Iran if it's needed to be done. But on a happier note, of course, Morocco's relationships with Israel is increasing by leaps and bounds. It's a great piece of news we're going to cover today. And don't forget to stay to the end because I'm going to introduce a new special guest star together with me during this program. Our former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who served the longest of any prime ministers of Israel in history, he said these words, "We are attacked and the world is silent. Will they also be silent if we retaliate?" That's a good question because now we understand Hamas, the Gaza jihadist terror group, is building a second front against Israel on the Lebanese border. Yes, and in fact, after shooting thousands of rockets towards the Israeli population, which consists of both Jews and Arabs and minority groups, they don't care. They also want to now open this second front in southern Lebanon to shoot more rockets in the future and retaliate and attack Israel as well. This, by the way, is ultimately funded and promoted by the Al-Quds Force of Iran, a jihadist organization that seeks the destruction of Israel. In fact, if you read in Hamas's aims and goals, they're seeking Israel's destruction. If you look deeply into Iran's protocol and what they want to do planned out against Israel, they want to destroy Israel altogether. If you look at the Hamas and Hezbollah rhetoric, it's all about destroying Israel. And when they talk about destroying Israel, I wonder if the Arab Israelis understand themselves that they're included in this mix for just being Israeli citizens. They don't differentiate whatsoever. But the Alma Research and Education Center, an Israeli think tank that specializes in security threats on the northern border, released a report this week outlining the true scope of Hamas's military activities in Lebanon, indicating that the terrorist rulers in Gaza are building a second front from which to attack Israel. Now, this is all on the back of the poor Lebanese people who are suffering already, 70% of the population lacking basic life necessities. 50% of the population and more are now seriously in poverty. This is a sad situation. And already Hamas has 2 operational units in southern Lebanon from their construction bureau. That's why Benny Gantz, the defense minister of Israel, is warning the world that we must take a stand now against Iran. Quote, "Iran is first a global challenge, then a regional one, and only lastly, it is a threat to Israel. The future is now, and a future with a nuclear Iran is a dark one." I go on to quote him saying, "We must always remain 2 steps ahead, combining civilian and military capabilities to maintain Israel's cyber superiority and to stop terrorism." Now, Gantz said the world is split between countries that innovate and those that steal innovation as opposed to those that oppose innovation. And he said Israel belongs to the first category while Iran belongs to the second category. We also need to understand that the Abraham Accords with our neighbors like Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Bahrain and Morocco, these are vital connections we have now in Israel. So let's keep on keeping on with these countries that are working together with Israel. And that is one of the reasons why the Gulf Arab states are cooperating with Israel. They are fearful of Iran's intentions, and rightly so, because now the IAF, the Israeli Air Force, is starting training for a strike on Iran's nuclear program in the coming months. Somebody said, wow, aren't you revealing secrets? No, this is actually in the news, and I'm just kind of following with what the news is saying. But in the beginning of this new year, it looks like we're going to have continual training with alternative plans up somebody's sleeve somewhere. Which reminds me, up somebody's sleeve, my mother celebrated her 94th birthday this week. Can you believe it? 94 years old. That's incredible, Mom. I just love you out there. And you know, we celebrated her party because she's in Brooklyn, New York, and we celebrated online, Zoom, golly, on Zoom. We celebrated her birthday, and she was hilarious. I mean, she's a regular comedian, and I think she's been there longer than the people who work in that nursing home. But my mother said these words to everybody. She says, my son Barry, he was such an angel growing up. He was the best boy growing up. Shh, let's not tell her what she doesn't know. Should we, Gingy? No, I don't think so. No, we shouldn't tell her at all. She loves you so much. Yeah, and I love her so much. So hats off to the mothers of this world. Well, anyways, on a better note, let me just tell you that the senior commander of Al-Qaeda was taken out, apparently, by the U.S. Army. Dun, dun, dun. Another one bites the dust. Dun, dun, dun. Another one bites the dust. All right, let's go on to a happier subject all the way. And that is that now Morocco and Israel are approving aviation, culture, and sports agreements with Israel. Hey, that's thumbs up for Morocco and Israel together. I love it, I love it, I love it. And the government meeting is devoted to the review of 2 cooperation agreements between the governments of the Kingdom of Morocco and the government of the State of Israel. You know, I like that, Kingdom of Morocco. Kingdom of Morocco. And for all of you, there is such a thing as a kingdom of heaven. Don't you forget, eternity is more important than what we have down here. So anyways, I just want to continue and tell you another piece of good news that we published this week. Israeli company breaks ground for the largest solar field in the United States. Another great thing about the startup nation. Israel's ambassador to the United States and the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, participated on October 15th in the groundbreaking of the Mammoth Solar Project to be built in Indiana. Yay! Go Hoosiers! Which will become the largest solar field in the United States. The Mammoth Solar Project is being built by Doral Energy, an Israeli company. Once operational, the Mammoth Solar Project, which stretches into 2 counties, will ultimately produce 1.3 gigawatts of clean energy. Now, I want you to know, going clean is mean. It's not a bad thing at all. And so, you know, some people are out there buying Teslas, others are building solar energy fields, and I think it's good. We built one on top of our own Millennium Center here in the heart of Israel. So we're selling back electricity to the electric company. Nothing bad with that. You just got to keep those panels clean. Keep your lives clean, people. Well, anyways, Ambassador Erdan said the Mammoth Solar Project is a milestone in the Israel-U.S. relationship, the biggest solar energy in the United States. So we're on the edge here of clean technology in Israel. I know that Israel is striving to move forward with that. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You know, forget the climate change issues. We need to see what we can do as nations to keep our environments clean and mean and powerful in this day and age. Yay! Hey, I want to introduce you to my other friend. I told you there'd be a surprise towards the end. His name is Tigger Joe. What have you got to say, Tigger Joe? Oh, nothing much. Thank you, Tigger Joe. See you next week. Okay. All right, anyways, let me know what you think in the comment section. And I'll take notice of every comment that comes in and try and do my best to respond to each and every one of you. Let me know what subjects you would like to explore together. Yes, together, all together now. All right. So this is Barry Segal for VFI News, and see you next week. Same time, same place, forever and ever.